Hey there, and welcome back to another AIP tutorial. Today we're going to be creating this lava text animation. This is going to be kind of a long one, got a lot to cover, so let's get started. As usual, the project files will be available to download. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can find that. So we're here in a brand new composition, just 1080p and I think 23.976 frames per second. All right, so we're gonna start building up our effect, and we need to create a whole bunch of different things. So let's start off with creating our text. So we can right click down in here, go to New, Text, and we can type in lava. Let's just align that to the center. Now for this particular instance, I'm using Shackleton Condensed. Now you can find that on the Adobe Fonts page. So if you have a Creative Cloud subscription, you can just click on this, search for Shackleton Condensed, and add that to your library. All right, for the size, it's about 770. For the tracking, I set this to -9. We have pretty good spacing between our letters here, except for this L and A. So we can click between that, go to the kerning over here, and bump that up a little bit so we have more even spacing between all the letters. So maybe about 90. All right, let's realign that to the center. Boom, there we go. All right, so we have our text layer. So what we can do is hit Shift-Command-C. We can pre-compose that, and we'll call this Text PC for pre-composition. Now we can just hit OK. There we go. Now let's poke its eye out. All right, so let's set up our magma. We're going to do that by right-clicking down in here, going to New, Solid. And let's call this Magma SLD for solid. Hit OK. First thing we're going to add to our Magma Solid is a fractal noise. Now we can go up to Effects and Presets and type in fractal noise. And that would be under Noise and Grain Fractal Noise. Now, anytime I mention let's add an effect, you can find it over here. But from now on, to save me time, I'm going to be using FX Console. I'm going to type it in, make sure that you can see what I'm typing in and all that stuff. But if you need to find it, you can find it over here. Let's work our way down from the top here. So fractal type, let's set that to dynamic progressive. All right, now we have more cloud-like structures. And we're going to check on invert. And now the contrast, we're going to turn that up to about 120. Okay, that's fine. Brightness we'll leave as is. Overflow, I'm going to set this to clip. All right, so let's open up transform. And we're going to turn off uniform scaling. And we're going to make this higher than it is wide. So for the width, we're going to set that to 30. And for the height, we're going to set that to 50. So now it's just slightly stretched in the up and down. All right, so now we want to add some movement. So we want this to flow upwards like this. So we can do that automatically with a time expression, except it's going to be a little different than what we normally use. All right, so let's alt-click on the stopwatch. And down here, you can see that we can write something. So let's type in time times. Now we're going to do something kind of slow. So we'll do 50 for now, just to get the... Uh-oh, look at this. We have a error. So if we click on this little warning symbol here, we can read what's going on. Error at line 0, blah, 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 blah. None of that's important. Expression result must be of dimension 2, not 1. So if we look at our numbers here, we have what's called an array. There's two numbers separated by a comma. So this would be the X position and the Y position. Now what that means by this is the 2 dimension that it's talking about, or dimension 2 that it's talking about. Could be a little worded a little bit better, Adobe. Anyway, so how we can fix this is we can just go back into our expression, delete the 50, put in a bracket, do 0, because we don't want to move in the x-axis, comma, 50. Now we can get out of this by either clicking outside of this expression, or we can hit the enter key on the number pad if you have that. So now we have dimension 2, not dimension 1. And you can see that our error message is gone and we're moving. But we're moving in the opposite direction that we want to. We want to go up. We want it to flow upwards. All right, so we can click back into our expression, add a minus in front of that 50, get out of there, and now we'll be moving upwards. So now we have our offset turbulence. Let's move down. Actually, we can take our complexity, maybe turn that down to 4. So now we need more motion. So we're going to add that through evolution. So what we can do is alt-click, do time, And we're going to do time times like 35. Should be a good speed, right? All right, so we're actually moving upwards way too fast, so I'm going to change that. So I'm going to take this from -50 to -25, cut that in half, see what that looks like. You don't want your lava to flow too fast. You know, it's melted rock. It's got some weight. It's got some goopiness, viscosity. So that is it for the fractal noise. Now let's add some more movement. Now I'm going to add a turbulent displace. We're just going to add that on top. We're going to leave this at turbulent. The amount we're going to turn up to about like 70, 80. We'll turn it up to 80. And then the size, we're going to turn that down quite a bit. Maybe something like 20-ish. So the only other thing we're going to do is the evolution. So we can alt-click on that stopwatch, go to our expression here, and we can type in time times 25. I just think this adds a little bit more goopiness to it. But we're not done yet. What we're also going to add on top of that is a vector blur. So we got CC vector blur. Let's add that on top. Now, I use this a lot, but I don't really use a lot of the settings. I only change 3 numbers: the amount, the ridge smoothness, and the map softness. Usually that's all I do. So for this one, I'm going to turn the amount up to 27. The ridge smoothness, I usually like to keep about half of the amount. So what is that? Math. So I'm going to just do, I'll just do 12 or something like that. You know, it doesn't need to be exact. You know, it's close enough that changing it's not going to make that much of a difference. All right, so ridge smoothness, 1290, whatever. Map softness, I usually set that to about the same as the amount. So it's 27. Let's bring that up there. All right, so now we have this kind of goopy goodness going on. All right, so now we want to colorize this. So you can use a lot of different methods. What I like to use is VC Color Vibrance. Let's just add that on top. That's a free plugin. I'd recommend picking that up. So let's bring this to a red-ish, orange-ish color, something like this. Now it looks even more like lava. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the transform of the fractal noise, and I'm going to set this to 25 and 40. It's a little bit smaller. I don't know. All right, so that's the part that kind of takes the most time to set up. So now that we're done with that, let's take our magma solid and let's hit Shift-Command-C to pre-compose that. We'll call this magma PC for pre-composition. We're going to make sure that we move all attributes into new composition, and let's hit OK. All right, so now we have our magma. Let's turn that off. Now let's create our cracks that are going to be used to create the rocks. All right, so we're going to right click, go to new, solid. All right, so let's call this cracks SLD for solid. All right, so let's hit OK. So the effect that we're going to be using on this to create our cracks is called cell pattern. So let's add our cell pattern on top. So our cell pattern is going to be set from bubbles to crystals. Now there's another option for crystals, HQ, high quality. If we click on that, you can see that everything's kind of more uniform, whereas the crystals has kind of these like dark patches and stuff like that. That's what we want. We want low quality. Here at AIP Tutorials, we choose the lowest of qualities. All right, so our contrast, let's turn that up to, I don't know, about like a good number. All right, so let's set this to a good number, 420.69. There we go. That's fine. Really, the contrast is going to be adjusted through a different effect. So overflow, we're going to keep that at clip. Disperse, we actually want to turn that all the way up, and that's the randomness of your tiles or your cells. So if we turn this all the way down, you can see that we just have a grid of squares. We don't want that. Get it out of here. Bring that all the way up. Now the size, we're going to turn that up to about 120-ish. We'll just turn that up pretty big, 111. Why not? Now the rest, you don't really need. Offset just determines where it is, you know, And evolution determines the kind of the seed, the random seed for this. All right, let's set this to something. I don't know. One thing you do want to look out for is very geometric shapes, like rectangles and stuff. Like here we have a rectangle, and a rectangle all in a row. That's going to stand out. So we can just kind of, mess around with this, get the least amount of, those kind of shapes out of there. This looks good. This looks fine. So on top of this, we're also going to add a levels. All right, so let's add that on top. And here's how we're going to adjust the actual contrast. Now we could just use this for all of our effect, but you get more control with this. All right, so let's bring this to, about the center. I don't know, that's fine. So what we're going to do is duplicate our crack solid layer by hitting Command D. So we're going to hit enter so we can change the name of this, and we're going to call this to cracks large SLD. And this one is going to be cracks small SLD. So obviously with the name, we're going to take the size and we're going to turn that down pretty decent amount. So let's try 75 for now. What we also want to do is set the blending mode for our small, or whatever one you have on top, set that to multiply. So it will mix with the larger one. All we have done is changed the size. As you can see, we kind of have a repeat of patterns, except one is just larger. It just doesn't look right. So what we can do is just change the evolution. There we go. And again, you want to look out for any kind of non-natural looking patterns, which I think we're pretty good. I mean, we got this, but yeah, that's probably gonna do something. Whoop! Now it turned into a bunch of squares. This is fine. Here we go. Let's just move on. All right, so we have our crack small and our crack large. What we want to do is take both of those and pre-compose them. Shift Command C, and we'll call this cracks PC. All right, now that we have that set up, let's set up our texture and our height map, basically. So we're going to use these bronze patina, albedo, and height. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can find these. I know it's metal and we're making rocks, and that probably doesn't make any sense, but honestly, this looks really good in the final result. Better than some of the rock textures that I've used. As you can see, we have a little tiny square here. It doesn't fill our entire screen. That's fine. Actually, we're going to make this even smaller. We're going to select our albedo and our height, hit S on the keyboard to scale it, and we're going to scale it down just a little bit. All right, so on top of our albedo, or our color information, we're going to add what's called a motion tile. Now, what's nice about this texture and using like PBR materials, like actual 3D rendering materials like this, is they're seamless and repeatable. To get that result, all we have to do is take the output width and the output height and bump those up until they cover what you need. This does use up a lot of memory. It's a memory hog. So what I like to do is actually just kind of make it a little bit bigger than what you're trying to turn into the texture. So I just moved the text up to the top and turned it on so I can see. And we're just going to set that to about there. All right, so we got our motion tile. Let's turn off our text, move that back down to the bottom. So let's copy our motion tile, Command C, and paste it onto the height. All right, so let's take our albedo. Let's turn that on real quick, and let's hit Shift Command C to pre-compose that. We're going to call this Texture PC. Hit OK. All right, so let's take our bronze patina height. Let's pre-compose that, and let's call this Height Matte PC. So I think what we're going to work on first is the kind of mat that we're going to be using to read the height of these rocks. But before we get started with that, we need to take our cracks PC, which is a black and white image basically, and we need to add some transparency to that. So the way we can do that is let's go and add a solid underneath that. So new solid, and let's just hit OK. We can make it whatever color we want. Or we're going to take our solid that we just created and turn the track matte to Luma inverted matte. So what this is going to do is read from the black and white data here, and anything black will be visible and anything white will be invisible. So let's do that. Now it looks like it just turned completely black, but if we turn on our transparency grid, boop, we can see that we have transparency. Good, we want that. All right, so let's take our cracks PC and our black solid, And let's pre-compose those. So this is going to be cracks matte PC. All right, let's turn on our transparency grid again so we can see what's going on here. So right now, we don't have anything that looks really good. It's not going to look good. All right, so what we want to do is add a roughen edges to our cracks matte PC. So we're going to do roughen edges. Add that on top. And let's bring this up to about 10. And edge sharpness, let's turn that up. And scale, we're actually going to turn that down pretty good amount to maybe about 30. We want that kind of jagged edginess. All right, so now you can see like some of the shapes are just kind of like melding together. Some of them, and we got this nice little rough texture around. This is the basis for our cracks and our matte for magma. All right, so what we want to do is actually duplicate our cracks matte PC, Command D. We want to actually duplicate the layer, Command D. There we go. Let's turn off our cracks PC, the bottom one. Let's take our, actually, and also we need to duplicate our text PC. So Command D that. Let's move that between our two cracks matte PCs. And let's select our height, our cracks, and our text PC. Now let's hit Shift Command C to pre-compose that. And we'll call this bevel matte. Nailed it. All right, so let's go into our bevel matte. Let's turn on our text and turn off our cracks matte for now. So what we want to do is create a nice little bevel on this guy. So we can do that by right-clicking on text PC, go to Layer Styles, Inner Glow. Now that may seem a little silly to add a glow, on a white text, but watch this. We're going to take this blend mode from screen to multiply. We're going to turn the opacity all the way up, and we're going to change the color to black. Now we have a nice little outline. So let's turn up our size, something like that. And under technique, we're going to change it from softer to precise. Now we have this nice little sharp-edged kind of gradient going on. So let's adjust that. Maybe turn that to about 32-ish for now. All right, and that's it for that. So let's turn on our cracks matte. Let's just set that to multiply. Boom. And let's turn on our height matte. Also set that to multiply. Now this looks like a mess right now, but trust me, it's going to look good. We actually want to turn down our height matte. So we can hit T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity. And let's turn that down to about 50%. All right, one thing we're going to want to do is put on a set matte on our cracks matte. So we're going to do set matte. There we go. Add that on top. And we're going to use our text as our matte layer. There we go. So that will make it so the cracks are only really visible on top of our letters. And we can do the same for the height matte PC, but we're not going to bother with that for right now. All right, so that's pretty much our bevel matte for now. We're going to come back to it, but I want to show you something with it first. All right, so let's go to our main comp. And this is where we're going to use our bevel matte on our texture PC. So let's turn that on. All right, and let's add a CC glass. It's a pretty common one. We've used it a bunch of times. So under bump matte, we're going to set that to our bevel matte. And we're going to take the softness and we're going to turn that almost all the way down to about like 1.4 or so. 1.3 is fine. Now we can actually see that we do have some really nice rock shapes. And they look pretty organic. I mean, don't look outside of the text, obviously. But yeah, we have some nice rock kind of looking structures here. All right, so let's set our height all the way up to 100. And the displacement, we're actually going to set to 0 because we don't want any displacement. So let's close this up because we're done with that for now. And let's go to shading. Now for shading, we're going to turn the ambient all the way down to 0. And we're going to turn up the specular just a little bit. And we're going to turn up the roughness, maybe like 120-ish, 0.120. All right, so let's do this. Let's add a set matte. And we're going to set this to the text PC. And let's turn off our transparency grid. All right, so now what we want to do is go back into our CC glass and go into our light. So we're going to set this from using effect light to AE lights. But we don't have any lights, so we can just create some. We can go to Layer, New, Light. And we're just going to create a simple point light. And we're going to move this off to the side. move it pretty far off the canvas here and move it backwards in the Z. So we're looking more for the highlights over here. You can see our edges are nicely highlighted, our bevel's nicely highlighted. So yeah, we want to look for that when we're placing our light. Then, once we get that into position, we can Command D to duplicate it and move it to the other side. Now it looks a little strange right now. Looks a little uniform. So what we can do is change the color of our lights. So if we double tap A, for the right one, I'm going to make it like an orangey yellowish color. Something like that. Now we can hit OK. That'll change the color. And we can go to our second light, or our first light that we created, the one on the left, and double tap A. Let's set that to nice blue color. Now, if you want, you can always go back and adjust this, which I'm going to do. There we go. Bring it back and then to the right here. There we go. So we got some nice lighting. I mean, it looks fine for now. Now, the thing that I purposefully left out of our bevel mat is something kind of important. Now, you notice we got this kind of weird edge, right? And I don't like it. So let's go back into our bevel mat. Let's add a new solid, a new black solid, and let's bring that all the way down to the bottom. Oh, a neat little trick. If you hit Shift Command open bracket, boop, that'll pop it right down to the bottom. Conversely, if you do Shift Command close bracket, that'll bring it to the top. If you do Command open bracket, that'll move it down by 1. And, close bracket will move it up by 1. Neat little keyboard tricks that you should learn. All right, so let's go back into our main comp, and boom, there goes our weird edge. All right, so let's bring our magma and our cracks matte PC up to the top here. Now we want to make sure our cracks matte PC is above our magma, and let's turn that on. And let's set the track matte for the magma to be alpha matte, and that's it. Now we also want to add another set matte, and we're going to set that, of course, to the text PC. Now we're almost at the finish line here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in this window here, go to View, New Viewer, and that's going to split our screen and lock one of these sides so that no matter what composition we go into, we're always going to see our end result here. All right, so what I want to do is get out of our bevel mat and go into our cracks PC. Now, watch this. If I go into our levels here, the further you move this to the left, the more rocks that'll be shown. We can do the same for this one. And the further to the right, the more magma that will be shown. Whoa! What is going on with this? What the okay. So I know what's going on here. So if we go to our project window here, and we look down here, we're at 32 bits per channel. Now we can change this by alt-clicking, cycling through 8 bits, 16 bits, and 32-bit. We want to be at 32-bit, but we got some weird results going on here. All right, so down here in our levels, clip to output black off for 32 bits per channel. So we can turn this on. On. There we go. That's better. And let's turn it on for our large cracks as well. There we go. Now we have some better results here. Yeah, so using our levels, we can determine how much rock is being shown or how much lava is being shown. So we can even animate this. So let's go to the beginning here. And let's turn this as far, let's just turn this to the far left. Yeah, that's what the direction is. And we can click on the histogram stopwatch, and that'll create a keyframe. And let's do that for our large. And let's go like maybe 6 seconds in. And let's spread this out a bit more. And we can really control this. If you want more bigger chunks, you can keep the smaller cracks down more towards the left, and I'll give you bigger chunks, or you can break it up even further. Pretty cool, pretty neat. All right, so since we changed that, if we hit U on the keyboard, you can see that we automatically created a new keyframe right here. And if we play this back, let's unlock this, go back to our main comp. So if you play this back, you can see that our rocks are kind of disappearing. And one thing we can do to give it more depth to these rocks, to make it look like it's actually sticking out of the lava a little bit more, is if we go into our bevel mat, if we right click on our cracks matte PC, we can add an outer glow. Let's add an outer glow to that. All right, so one thing we're going to do real quick is take our roughen edges and actually bring that down to about 10. And then we are going to go into our outer glow down here, and we're going to do basically the same that we did with the inner glow on our text. So we're going to set this to multiply, set it to 100%, and to the color to black. There we go. So we're going to change the technique to precise, like we did with the other one, and we're going to change the range. We're going to bring that up to maybe about 75-ish. Now this will create a gradient stretching out from our cracks, and this is going to create more of a more depth. Like as you can see, it looks more like it's sticking out from the lava than it did before. Now that's a technique I added last minute. So now we have this. Let's get some glows in there, and then we'll be done. All right, so let's add a new adjustment layer. And on top of that, we're going to add a glow, believe it or not. All right, so for this, I'm going to turn this down, the threshold down, just until the rocks are not being glowed, you know? We don't want to really have too much glow on the rocks, because rocks don't glow. All right, so glow radius, we're going to set that to 20. Now this is like very formulaic in the way I do my glows. Thank you, Video Copilot. So glow intensity, I'm going to put that to 0.1. All right, so what I'm going to do is take our glow, Command D to duplicate it. And for the glow radius, I'm going to set this to 3 times the amount of the first one. So that would be 60. And I'm going to take that glow that we just created, and I'm going to duplicate it again a 3rd time. Boom. All right, so this is going to be 3 times the amount of this one. So that's going to be 180. And that's just how I do my glows. When we do glows like this, we actually want to have a black background. So we can create a new solid, make that black, and bring that all the way down. Boom, there we go. All right, so that's it for today's episode. It was kind of a long one, a lot of stuff that went over. Oh, also, if we go into our bevel mat, let's do the new viewer thing again. We go into our bevel mat, and let's go to our text. We can double tap U, and that'll bring up any changes made to the layer. So we can take our size, and we can actually adjust that to kind of determine how big our bevel is going to be. We can turn that all the way up if we want. Let's turn that back down to maybe like 32. I think that's what it was before, but whatever. You can adjust that. That's the lesson. All right, so that is it. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment. You can hit the subscribe button and then do the bell, ring the bell, and then do all notifications, because very convenient way of subscribing, jumping through hoops and all that. Must have had something in my throat there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.